was a weird one. We were in the heat of the pandemic and slowly transitioning to outdoor dining and still wearing masks even while hanging out with friends. I was in the midst of remembering how to talk again as I had spent 3 months of practical silence alone with my parents. Being in the same room as even my best friend made me feel as anxious as I felt in school, like the world might end at any given second. And for some unfathomable reason, I decided it would be a good idea to pursue someone romantically. In all honesty, the kid was a tool. Very trash, as my friends and I would come to call him. But it was at this point that I had something to prove. I was convinced I was as repulsive as I felt. I hated how much space my hips take up, how my nose sits on my face, and how my hands shake. And instead of dealing with these insecurities in a healthy, reasonable way, I subconsciously decided to rely on this person for every ounce of self-esteem that could possibly fill my body. And when I noticed the tone of our conversation shift, I stayed up all night pulling my hair out and smoking, trying to figure out what I did wrong. At 5 in the morning, my brother turned to me out of the room, and said if the smoke alarm went off, it was over for me. He was 22 and I was 18, but I knew when enough was enough. I took my Crocs and the air bar I had stolen from a friend and went back 3 steps outside my apartment building. It was early July, and I remember how the sky was still waking up and that the humidity hadn't yet settled. I was exhausted. I felt like I hadn't slept in years. I was worried about what he thought of me, what would happen the coming fall, and if my best friend would replace me. I had a chill running down my spine and sweat on my forehead, and while I was biting the inside of my lip, shaking my leg, a dark-haired woman stopped in front of me. "What's the matter with you?" she asked me. She had this thick Ukrainian accent that I recognized from the woman who lived in my friend's building. "Why are you sitting there like that?" I was dumbstruck. This woman was looking at me like I had personally insulted her. I told her that I had no idea what she was talking about. She looked me dead in the eye and told me that there was no one in the world worth stressing over like that. I wanted so badly to tell her that she didn't know me. She didn't know how many days I had been absent in high school or how much I wanted to be someone else. But something on her face told me she didn't really care. It was 5 in the morning and she had stopped what looked like a very intense power walking session to scold me. And instead of keeping my guard up, something in the air between us told me to listen to what she had to say. She told stories of growing up in Europe and having to mature much faster than her brothers once her mother had died. She told me that even though she loved her father, once he died, she believed the things she had done for him meant nothing because he had left nothing for her. And after meeting with her brother and his wife, seeing them throwing out her father's things, she turned to her husband and said that they needed to leave. They left for America where she got her education, they had children, and now she teaches. She told me that she misses them so much, that missing them was so much easier than being around them. And it took me losing my own family, related and unrelated, to understand what she meant. She was living for the other people in her life. She had tried to fill the void her mother had left, cleaning up after her brothers, busying her father, all in the while losing herself and her childhood. I understood this. I had watched my own mom lose herself in motherhood and my dad to his unresolved childhood trauma. We all grew up saying we won't be like our parents, but I noticed the similarities between us from an early age. They told William, my brother, and I to give our all and our best to everyone around us, and we did. We did at every cost. I went to my friends' houses with their families, listened to their music, watched their movies, and nobody ever asked me what I wanted. And soon I would learn it didn't really matter what I wanted if I wasn't where I was meant to be. The week after our encounter, 3 "Where were you when Kennedy was shot" events happened in my life. I graduated high school a month later than I was supposed to because of the pandemic. On the same day I found out I wouldn't be on campus my first semester of college, which was also the same day that the person I was seeing ended things for the first time. It was that same summer my best friend and I would stop talking, and it was the same year I wouldn't only hit rock bottom, but try to go 6 feet under it. I had no direction to go in at that point except up. I had to learn how to talk again, even though there wasn't anyone listening. This was how I learned to stand on my own 2 feet, and that meant accepting myself without the sound of someone else's voice in my ear. Sorry. In doing so, sorry, this is so weird.
So good.
In doing so, I had to address my sexuality, my appearance, and my diagnosis with bipolar disorder in a way I've never had to before. That meant those aspects became aspects that I'm still trying to embrace more in order to silence my intrusive thoughts. This all means coming to terms with the fact that my growth meant leaving people behind, like my stranger nerd family. I may miss them all sometimes, but I don't for a second miss how they made me feel. It's this prolonged lesson that the stranger taught me that I'm able to make it to the end of the day without fearing it might be my last.